how humanity's first colony survived an alien apocalypse. The Terraformer's Gambit. Dr. Linh Tran wiped sweat from her brow as she adjusted the atmospheric regulator. Through the reinforced dome of Outpost Epsilon, the alien sun cast a peculiar violet glow across the laboratory. 6 years on Proxima b, and she still hadn't grown accustomed to the strange light that bathed their colony in perpetual twilight. "Another day in paradise," she muttered, checking the soil composition readouts. The numbers were promising: oxygen levels rising steadily, nitrogen-fixing bacteria thriving in the once barren regolith. Her life's work was bearing fruit, quite literally, as the first non-Earth crops had begun to flourish in the experimental greenhouse sectors. The colony's 3,000 inhabitants depended on her terraforming expertise. What had begun as a scientific outpost had evolved into humanity's first true interstellar settlement, complete with families, schools, and dreams of a self-sustaining future. They were making history with every breath they took on this distant world. The comm unit on her wrist chirped. "Dr. Tran, Security Chief Santos requests your presence at command. Priority Alpha." Lynn frowned. Miguel rarely invoked Priority Alpha protocols. Something was wrong. The command center hummed with tense energy as Lynn entered. Miguel Santos stood before the main display, his broad shoulders rigid with tension. At 42, the former Marine still maintained the disciplined physique of his military days, though silver had begun to thread through his close-cropped black hair. "You need to see this," he said without preamble, gesturing toward the screen. The orbital feed showed a cluster of objects decelerating into Proxima b's atmosphere, sleek. Obsidian vessels unlike anything in Earth's fleet. "First contact," Lynn whispered, her heart racing. Miguel's expression darkened. "Not the friendly kind. We've been monitoring their approach for the past 6 hours. They're not responding to hails, and their trajectory suggests deliberate intent." He pointed to a tactical display. "They'll make planetfall approximately 20 kilometers from our perimeter." "Have you alerted Earth?" "Message sent, but you know the drill, 15 months minimum before we get a response." His eyes met hers, and Lynn saw something she'd never witnessed in the security chief before: fear. "We're on our own, Doc." The colony's emergency council convened within the hour, department heads, elected representatives, and key personnel crowding the conference room. Governor Chen, her face drawn with concern, called the meeting to order. "Our sensors indicate 7 vessels, each approximately twice the size of our largest transport ships," Miguel reported. "They've established a perimeter around their landing site and appear to be deploying ground forces." "What do they want?" asked Dr. Khatri from Agriculture. "We don't know," Governor Chen replied, "but we must prepare for all possibilities." Lynn studied the footage of the alien ships, their hulls reflecting the violet sunlight with an almost liquid sheen. Something about their design triggered a memory from her xenobiology studies. The curves, the material properties. "I think I recognize their configuration," she said suddenly. The room fell silent. They matched descriptions from the Centauri probe's encounter at Barnard's star, the Vex. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Vex encounter had been brief and inconclusive, a distant probe's fleeting observation of an advanced civilization that had shown neither hostility nor friendship, merely acknowledgement before disappearing. "If these are the Vex," Miguel said, "why come here and why now?" The answer arrived with devastating clarity 3 hours later. The colony's perimeter alarm screamed to life as sensors detected movement. Dozens, then hundreds of signatures approaching from multiple vectors. Miguel's security forces scrambled to defensive positions, their training evident in their efficiency, if not their experience. None of them had ever faced a true external threat. The colony's greatest dangers had always been environmental. Lynn watched from the command center as the first visual confirmation appeared on the screens. The aliens moved with unsettling grace, bipedal, but with too many joints, their bodies protected by segmented armor that shifted colors to match the terrain. Their faces, if they had them, were concealed behind smooth, reflective helmets. "They're armed," Miguel reported grimly. "Energy weapons of some kind." Governor Chen stepped forward. "Broadcast on all frequencies. We are a peaceful scientific colony from Earth. We mean no harm and wish to establish diplomatic." The transmission cut short as the first energy blast struck the colony's outer shield. The impact sent a ripple through the protective barrier, the advanced technology absorbing the attack but at considerable power cost. "So much for diplomacy," Miguel muttered. "All units, defensive positions only. Do not fire unless fired upon directly." The aliens, the Vex, paused their advance, forming a semicircle around the colony's main entrance. From their ranks, a single figure emerged. Taller than the others, its armor adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with internal light. "They're sending an emissary," Governor Chen said hopefully. The alien commander raised what appeared to be a ceremonial staff. For a moment, silence hung in the air, a fragile thread of possibility. Then the staff plunged into the ground, and hell broke loose. Energy weapons fired in coordinated salvos, targeting the colony's shield generators with precision. Security forces returned fire, their conventional weapons seeming primitive against the advanced technology of the invaders. But human ingenuity compensated somewhat. Miguel had prepared for the worst, equipping his people with experimental pulse rifles developed for extreme mining operations. Lin watched in horror as the first casualties were reported. 3 security officers caught in a flanking maneuver, 2 technicians when a secondary generator exploded. "We need to evacuate non-essential personnel to the emergency bunkers," Miguel shouted over the chaos. "Why are they attacking us?" Governor Chen demanded, her composure cracking. "What could they possibly want?" Lin's eyes widened as realization struck. "The terraforming project," she whispered, then louder. "They're here because of what we're doing to the planet." 3 days into the siege, Lin found herself in an unlikely position interrogator. The captured Vex soldier lay restrained in the medical bay, its armor removed to reveal a physiology both familiar and alien. Exoskeletal plates protected a form that seemed almost insectoid in its segmentation, yet with disturbingly mammalian characteristics. Its skin, if it could be called that, shifted between deep purple and midnight blue, with bioluminescent patterns pulsing beneath the surface. "Can you understand me?" Lin asked for the 3rd time. The alien's multifaceted eyes focused on her with unnerving intensity. Then, to everyone's shock, it spoke, the words forming from what appeared to be multiple voice organs working in concert. "You destroy, we preserve." Miguel tensed beside her. "It speaks English." "Likely a translation device or adaptive linguistics," Lin replied, never taking her eyes off the creature. "What are we destroying?" The alien's appendage gestured weakly toward the window, beyond which lay the terraformed fields. "Life, balance, network." "The ecosystem," Lin leaned closer. "Are you saying there's indigenous life here that we're harming?" The creature's bioluminescence flared. Beneath, connected, ancient. Understanding dawned on Lin with horrifying clarity. Her soil samples had occasionally contained anomalous microorganisms that she dismissed as contamination. What if they weren't anomalies at all, but part of a complex subsurface ecosystem, one her terraforming processes were systematically destroying? "We didn't know," she said softly. "We thought this world was barren." "Your ignorance, our extinction." The alien's lights dimmed. "Captain Rax will cleanse." Miguel pulled Lin aside. "What's it talking about?" "I think we've stumbled into an interplanetary nature preserve," she replied, her mind racing. "The Vex must be some kind of guardians or caretakers, and we're the invasive species. That doesn't justify a military assault on civilians." From their perspective, we're committing genocide. Lin ran a hand through her disheveled hair. My terraforming process alters the soil chemistry, introduces Earth bacteria. It's probably devastating whatever ecosystem exists below the surface. The alien's voice rose again. The cleansing comes 3 cycles. What happens in 3 cycles? Miguel demanded. But the creature had said its piece. Its bioluminescence faded to a dull glow as it lapsed into silence. Later analysis suggested 3 cycles, meant 3 rotations of Proxima b, less than 72 Earth hours. They're planning something catastrophic, Lin explained to the Emergency Council. Based on what we've learned and the movements we've observed, I believe they're positioning terraforming countermeasures of their own devices designed to rapidly revert our changes and restore the original ecosystem. That doesn't sound so bad, Dr. Khatri offered. Except the process would release compounds toxic to humans, Lin continued. The atmospheric change alone would kill everyone in the colony within hours, and that's assuming they don't simply decide to eliminate us directly. Governor Chen rubbed her temples. Options. Miguel stepped forward. We've managed to capture 2 of their smaller vessels. My team is studying their propulsion systems, if we could get enough people off-planet. To go where? Someone interrupted. We can't reach Earth, and we have no other habitable options in this system. Silence fell over the room as the impossible situation sank in. Lin stared at the holographic display of the colony and surrounding terrain. The Vex had established 7 distinct outposts, each centered around what appeared to be massive drilling operations. Their captain, this Rax, had been observed at each site, overseeing the installation of devices that burrowed deep into Proxima b's crust. We don't need to defeat them militarily, she said slowly. We need to communicate, show them we can coexist with their ecosystem. They don't seem interested in talking, Miguel pointed out. Then we make them listen. Lin's fingers danced across the display, highlighting the colony's terraforming infrastructure. I can modify our atmospheric processors to detect and preserve their microbial network rather than replace it. If I can demonstrate that our technology can work in harmony with their ecosystem. You want to reprogram 6 years of terraforming work in less than 3 days? Dr. Khatri asked incredulously. No, Lin replied, her expression hardening with determination. I want to create a new model of planetary coexistence in 3 days, and then I need to show it to Captain Rax before he activates whatever doomsday devices they're planting. Lin worked without sleep, her laboratory transformed into a command center for the most ambitious scientific pivot in human history. Her team analyzed the captured Vex's cellular structure, identifying the unique biochemical markers that distinguished the alien ecosystem. Miguel provided security, and surprisingly, insight, his tactical mind helping to map the complex interactions between the introduced Earth biology and the native systems. It's like 2 computer networks, he observed during a rare break. They can either conflict and crash, or we can create protocols for them to communicate. Lin nodded, too exhausted for words. Her simulations showed promise, a modified terraforming approach that would create habitable pockets for humans while preserving and even enhancing the subsurface network that the Vex protected. But theory and practice were different beasts, and time was running out. The Vex attacks had diminished, but their drilling operations continued unabated. Whatever cleansing they planned was proceeding on schedule. We need to reach Captain Rax, Lin said finally. These modifications won't matter if they activate their devices first. Miguel's expression darkened. That would mean crossing their lines, suicide mission. Not necessarily. Lin pulled up a topographical map. There's a maintenance tunnel that extends beyond our perimeter. It was part of the original mining operation before we established the colony. It might get us close enough to their central command post. Us, Miguel raised an eyebrow. I need to show Rax my work personally. The technical details, the simulations, it has to be me. She met his gaze steadily. And I'll need protection. Miguel studied the map, his tactical mind already plotting routes and contingencies. Two-person operation, quick and quiet, he nodded slowly. It could work. The tunnel was claustrophobic and poorly lit, decades of disuse evident in the rust and debris that cluttered their path. Lynn clutched her tablet containing the precious research data, while Miguel moved ahead with practiced stealth, pulse rifle at the ready. They emerged 3 kilometers from the colony, using the rugged terrain for cover as they approached the largest Vex installation. Up close, the alien technology was even more impressive: crystalline structures that seemed to grow from the ground rather than being constructed, pulsing with the same bioluminescence as their creators. There, Miguel whispered, pointing to a tall figure directing operations at the center of the complex. That has to be Rax. Captain Rax stood head and shoulders above the other Vex, his armor more elaborate, adorned with what appeared to be living ornaments that shifted and flowed across its surface. Unlike the soldier they'd captured, Rax's face was partially visible, a complex arrangement of sensory organs surrounding a central structure that might have been a mouth or communication device. "How do we get to him?" Lynn asked. Miguel pointed to a ridge overlooking the installation. "We don't. We make him come to us." Using components salvaged from their equipment, Miguel constructed a simple signal amplifier. When activated, it would broadcast on frequencies they determined the Vex used for communication. "Ready?" he asked. Lynn nodded, her heart pounding. "Ready." The device emitted a pulsing tone that cut through the alien cacophony below. Almost immediately, activity in the installation ceased. Vex soldiers turned toward the ridge, weapons raised. Captain Rax raised a limb, and the soldiers held their fire. With surprising agility, the alien commander ascended toward their position, flanked by 2 guards. "Stay behind me," Miguel murmured, positioning himself between Lynn and the approaching aliens. Captain Rax halted several meters away, his bioluminescent patterns flaring in what might have been curiosity or anger. When he spoke, the sound was like nothing Lynn had ever heard, a complex harmony of tones that somehow formed words her brain could interpret. "The destroyers seek audience, curious." Lynn stepped forward despite Miguel's protective arm. "Captain Rax, we've discovered our mistake. We didn't know about the subsurface ecosystem when we began terraforming, but we've found a solution, a way for both our species to coexist on this world." She held out her tablet, displaying the simulations and modified terraforming protocols. "Our technology can be adapted to preserve your network while still allowing humans to survive here. We don't need to be enemies." Rax's sensory organs focused on the display, the patterns beneath his exoskeleton pulsing rapidly. "Deception," he finally said. "Humans consume, destroy, always." "Not always," Lynn insisted. "We can learn, adapt. The proof is in this data." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then Rax extended a limb toward the tablet. Miguel tensed, but Lynn handed over the device. The alien captain studied the information with inscrutable intensity. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the wind and the distant hum of machinery. "Interesting theory," Rax finally said. "Unproven." "Give us a chance to prove it," Lynn pleaded. "Let me demonstrate a small-scale implementation. If it fails, you lose nothing. Your cleansing can proceed as planned." Rax's bioluminescence pulsed in complex patterns as he communicated with his guards. Then, to Lynn's surprise, he returned the tablet. "One rotation, one test, then we decide." 24 hours wasn't much time to demonstrate a revolutionary approach to planetary coexistence, but it was all they had. With the colony's best minds working alongside her, Lynn converted a section of the experimental greenhouse into a testing ground for her modified terraforming process. The key insight had come from studying the captured Vex's cellular structure. Their biology utilized silicon compounds in ways Earth life used carbon, creating a fundamentally different but equally complex basis for life. The subsurface ecosystem wasn't competing with Earth bacteria. It was operating on an entirely different biochemical level. If we adjust our atmospheric processors to maintain dual-compatible conditions, Lin explained to Captain Rax, who observed their work with unnerving stillness, both forms of life can thrive without interference. The alien captain said nothing, but his presence spurred the team to greater efforts. Miguel maintained security, his watchful eyes never leaving the Vex leader even as he helped coordinate the technical aspects of the demonstration. As the deadline approached, Lin activated the modified system. Specialized sensors monitored both the Earth vegetation and samples of the subsurface microorganisms they'd carefully cultivated. Hours passed in tense silence as the data accumulated. "Look," Lin finally said, pointing to the results. "The Earth plants are growing at 92% efficiency, slightly reduced but well within sustainable parameters. And the native microorganisms are not only surviving but flourishing in the adjusted soil chemistry." She turned to Rax. "We can expand this model to create habitable zones for humans while preserving and even enhancing your ecosystem. Coexistence is possible." The alien captain studied the results, his bioluminescent patterns shifting in complex ways. When he finally spoke, his harmonics carried a new tone, something almost like respect. "Unexpected adaptation, perhaps, possibility exists." Hope flickered in Lin's chest. "Does this mean you'll halt the cleansing?" Rax's sensory organs focused on her with unsettling intensity. "Partial demonstration, limited proof." He gestured toward the colony beyond the greenhouse. "Full implementation required, before final cycle completes." Miguel stepped forward. "You're saying we need to apply this modification to our entire terraforming system. That's impossible in the time we have left." "Then extinction comes," Rax stated simply. Lin's mind raced. The colony's atmospheric processors were distributed across 6 sectors, each requiring physical reconfiguration and reprogramming. Even with every available technician, the task would take days, not hours. "Unless—" "The central control node," she said suddenly. "If we modify the master protocols and force a system-wide update, we could implement the changes simultaneously across all processors." "That's never been done," Dr. Khatri objected. "The safety interlocks prevent exactly that kind of override." "Then we bypass the interlocks," Lin replied, her voice steady with newfound determination. "It's that or extinction." The colony's central control node was housed in the administrative tower, a reinforced structure at the heart of the settlement. As Lin and her team worked feverishly to prepare the override protocols, Miguel coordinated with Governor Chen to evacuate non-essential personnel to emergency shelters. "If this goes wrong," he explained grimly, "the atmospheric composition could fluctuate wildly. We need people in protected environments until we stabilize the system." Outside the colony's shields, the Vex had ceased their drilling operations but maintained their positions. Their devices, the cleansing technology, remained active, a constant reminder of what awaited failure. Captain Rax had returned to his forces, leaving behind a communication device and a simple message: "Success or extinction. No third path exists." As the final hours ticked away, Lin faced the most daunting technical challenge of her career. The override required simultaneous manipulation of 6 independent systems, each with its own failsafes and emergency protocols designed specifically to prevent the kind of wholesale modification she now attempted. "It's ready," she finally announced, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "The override sequence is prepared, but there's a problem." Miguel looked up from the security console. "What kind of problem?" The safety interlocks can only be bypassed from the individual processor stations. Someone needs to be physically present at each location to input the authentication codes when the override initiates. 6 locations, Miguel said, understanding immediately. 6 people. In potentially hazardous conditions, Lin added. Once the override begins, atmospheric composition will fluctuate until the new protocols stabilize. Anyone at the processor stations will be exposed. Governor Chen, who had insisted on remaining in the command center, stepped forward. I'll take 1 station. Ma'am, with respect, Miguel began. I'm still the governor of this colony, she interrupted. I won't ask others to take risks I'm unwilling to share. In the end, 6 volunteers were selected. Governor Chen, Dr. Khatri, 3 senior engineers, and Miguel himself. Lin would remain at the central node, coordinating the override sequence. The processors are hardened against environmental conditions, she assured them during the final briefing. You should have adequate protection if you stay within the control rooms. Once the authentication is complete, seal the chambers and wait for confirmation before attempting to return. Miguel caught her eye across the room. In another life, another time, perhaps they might have been more than colleagues. Now, that unspoken possibility hung between them like a fragile thread. Synchronize chronometers, Lin instructed. The override initiates in exactly 40 minutes. That gives everyone time to reach their stations and prepare the local systems. As the volunteers dispersed, Miguel lingered for a moment. If this works, he said quietly, you'll have saved humanity's first interstellar colony and established peaceful contact with an advanced alien species. Lin managed a tired smile, and if it doesn't, then we gave it one hell of a try. He squeezed her shoulder gently. See you on the other side, Doc. The minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness as Lin monitored the preparations from the central node. One by one, the processor stations reported readiness, each volunteer positioned at their assigned console, awaiting the override signal. Outside, sensors detected increased activity among the Vex forces. Their devices had begun emitting energy signatures that interfered with the colony's communications, forcing Lin to switch to hardened backup systems. Final check, she broadcast to all stations. Processor 1. Ready, came Governor Chen's steady voice. Processor 2. Systems aligned, reported Dr. Khatri. One by one, all 6 stations confirmed their status. Miguel was the last to respond from Processor 6, the most distant station located near the colony's outer perimeter. Ready and waiting, he confirmed. Though I've got company outside, Vex forces are gathering around the processor stations. They know what we're doing. Lin checked the chronometer. 5 minutes to initiation. They're watching to see if we succeed or fail. Hold positions and prepare for authentication sequence. The override program was elegant in its complexity, a cascading protocol that would simultaneously reconfigure all atmospheric processors to implement Lin's dual compatibility model. If it worked, the colony's environmental systems would shift from terraforming to coexistence, preserving both human habitability and the native ecosystem. If it failed, the atmospheric composition would destabilize, potentially rendering the entire settlement uninhabitable. Initiating override in 3, 2, 1. Lin activated the sequence. Immediately, warning alarms blared as the system detected unauthorized modifications. On her screen, authentication prompts appeared at all 6 processor stations. Authentication required, she announced. Input codes now. One by one, the stations reported successful authentication, Governor Chen first, followed by Dr. Khatri and the engineers. Miguel's confirmation came last, his voice tight with tension. Authentication complete, but we've got a problem. The Vex are attempting to breach the processor housing. Lin's heart raced. Can you hold them off? Negative, they're using some kind of energy tool to cut through the outer shell. ETA to breach 2 minutes. The override sequence was progressing, but slowly. The system fought against the modifications, emergency protocols activating and requiring manual suppression. If any processor went offline during the transition, the entire operation would fail. All stations seal your control rooms, Lin ordered. Atmospheric fluctuations beginning now. On her monitors, environmental readings began to shift dramatically. Oxygen levels dropped as the system purged and recalibrated, nitrogen compounds spiked, and trace elements never before detected in the colony's atmosphere appeared in measurable quantities. Processor 3 reporting successful transition, came the first positive news. Local readings stabilizing within predicted parameters. One by one, the stations reported similar results, the modified protocols taking hold, the new atmospheric balance establishing itself. All except Processor 6. Miguel's status report, Lin called, fighting to keep the fear from her voice. Static answered her, then a burst of fragmented audio. Breach imminent, holding but cannot maintain. The environmental readings from Sector 6 fluctuated wildly, then began to deteriorate. Without that processor, the entire system would eventually collapse back to unstable parameters. Lin made a decision. All stations except 6 maintain positions and continue monitoring. I'm heading to Processor 6. Governor Chen's voice crackled over the comm. Dr. Tran, that's too dangerous. The atmospheric conditions are exactly what I've been studying for 6 years, Lin finished. I'm the most qualified person to manually stabilize that processor. She grabbed an emergency breathing apparatus and environmental suit, though she knew it would provide only limited protection against the chaotic conditions outside. The central node was located 2 kilometers from Processor 6, a journey that would take her through increasingly unstable atmospheric zones. As she prepared to leave, the communication system crackled to life once more. This time, it wasn't Miguel's voice that emerged, but the harmonic tones of Captain Rax. Human effort noted, unexpected persistence. A pause, assistance offered. Before Lin could respond, the colony's sensors detected movement Vex forces converging on Processor 6, but not in an attack formation. They appeared to be reinforcing it. Captain Rax, are you protecting our processor? Coexistence requires mutual effort, came the reply. Your technology, our protection. Hope surged through Lin as she monitored the situation. The Vex were using their advanced technology to shield Processor 6 from the environmental fluctuations, allowing Miguel to complete the transition protocols. One by one, all 6 processors stabilized, their readings aligning with Lin's theoretical model. The colony's atmosphere began to settle into a new equilibrium, one that could support both human life and the native ecosystem. It's working, Dr. Khatri reported in disbelief. The atmospheric composition is stabilizing within human-tolerable parameters, but the native microorganisms are thriving in the soil samples. Outside the colony's perimeter, the Vex deactivation devices powered down, their ominous glow fading to dormancy. Captain Rax's forces began to withdraw from their positions around the settlement, returning to their ships. All except for Rax himself, who approached the colony's main entrance alone, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing in what Lin now recognized as a gesture of communication. The formal meeting between human and Vex leadership took place 3 days later, after the atmospheric systems had fully stabilized, and the colony had begun to adapt to its new environmental paradigm. Captain Rax, accompanied by 2 advisors, met with Governor Chen, Dr. Linh Tran, and Security Chief Miguel Santos in the colony's newly designated diplomatic chamber. Your species has demonstrated unexpected adaptability, Rax began, his harmonic speech now more comprehensible to human ears. Few civilizations choose coexistence when confronted with limitation. Governor Chen nodded respectfully. We had excellent motivation, and Dr. Tran's insights made it possible to find a solution that preserves both our futures. Lin, still exhausted but filled with a profound sense of accomplishment, studied the alien captain with newfound understanding. Your people, the Vex, you're not just warriors, are you? You're caretakers. Rax's bioluminescence shifted in patterns that the humans were beginning to recognize as affirmation. We maintain balance across many worlds. Life is precious, rare. Complex networks must be preserved. A conservation force, Miguel suggested, protecting ecosystems across multiple star systems. Simplistic but accurate, Rax acknowledged. Your Earth term might be rangers or wardens. We intervene when developing species threaten established biospheres. Usually with cleansing, I assume, Lin said quietly. Usually necessary, Rax replied without apology. Your solution is unprecedented, a new approach. The implications were staggering. Humanity had stumbled into a galactic ecosystem far more complex and managed than anyone had imagined. Their successful adaptation on Proxima b might represent not just the salvation of one colony, but a revolutionary approach to human expansion among the stars. We have much to learn from each other, Governor Chen said. Would your people be willing to share knowledge, to help us understand the wider galactic community we've entered? Rax's sensory organs focused on each human in turn, his alien gaze unreadable but somehow thoughtful. Limited exchange possible, gradual integration preferred. Your species remains unpredictable. Miguel smiled slightly. We get that a lot. In the days that followed, the colony began to transform. The modified atmospheric processors created a unique environment that supported both human habitation and the native ecosystem. More remarkably, the two systems began to interact in unexpected ways, Earth plants developing symbiotic relationships with the silicon-based microorganisms, creating hybrid biological processes that neither human nor Vex scientists had anticipated. Lin found herself at the center of a new scientific frontier, xenoharmonics, the study of cross-species ecological integration. Her laboratory expanded as researchers from both species collaborated on understanding and enhancing the coexistence model. The Vex maintained a small outpost near the colony, a permanent delegation led by a junior officer after Captain Rax departed to continue his duties elsewhere in the sector. The knowledge they shared was limited, but profound glimpses of a galactic community humanity had yet to fully encounter, bound by complex ecological relationships rather than political alliances. One evening, as Proxima b's strange twilight bathed the colony in violet hues, Lin found Miguel on the observation deck, gazing at the alien landscape that had become their home. Thinking about Earth, she asked, joining him at the railing. He shook his head. Thinking about the future. We came here believing we were alone, that this planet was ours to reshape. Now we know we're part of something much bigger. Frightening. Humbling, he corrected, but also inspiring. We almost became another species that couldn't adapt, that had to be cleansed. He turned to face her. Instead, you found a third path. Lin smiled, watching as the first of the evening's bioluminescent flora began to glow across the landscape, a beautiful side effect of the new ecological balance. Earth plants intermingling with native species, creating something entirely new. Not me, she said, us, all of us together. Beyond the colony's perimeter, the modified landscape stretched toward the horizon, no longer an alien world being forced to become Earth, nor a preserved ecosystem untouched by human presence. Instead, it had become something unprecedented, a genuine collaboration between species, between worlds, between fundamentally different forms of life. A new kind of home for a new kind of future. Thank you for listening.